Um, I'd like to talk about John Francis Ross, who is in prison in Ontario, Oregon, in Snake River Prison. I have been studying his case. I do research, legal research, and try to document provably innocent prisoners. I've been documenting and researching his case for going on 3 years now. And I have found numerous reasons that I am convinced he is an innocent man. He was born in Medford, Oregon. He met his wife Marie when they were 15 and 13 at a hoedown dance down there in Gold Hill. They married when John got out of high school. They had 2 boys, Kelly and Jimmy. And he mostly spent his life working as a truck driver. He had some industrial accidents that caused him to be off work for extended periods of time, which he got educated as a paramedic and ambulance driver and cold water boat rescue specialist, all that. But after a few years, he got his CDL license back and went to work for Top Rock Trucking in Gold Hill, I believe, or White, I don't know, down there by Medford. And Kelly married a girl named Christy, and it ended up they couldn't have any children. And their younger son, Jimmy, met a gal by the name of Jessie Smith, and she had a little girl named Taylor, who was 3 years old. And the Rosses fell in love with that little girl, and she was around for about 2.5 years. Jimmy and Jessie didn't always get along. In fact, they fought a lot. But the Rosses loved this little girl. John worked as a truck driver. Marie worked in a film processing company, and she had 2 days off work a week during the week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then I believe she had 3 days off a second week. On the days off that she had, she babysit Taylor. John never babysit Taylor. It was testified that he was never alone with Taylor, even in the house, because he worked long hours, mostly 14 hours a day. But he loved the little girl, and they bought her everything. They did everything for her. But one time, John got home from work one evening, and Marie got a phone call, and she told John, Taylor's in the bathroom taking a bath. Would you go check on her? And so he went in to check, and Taylor was manipulating herself in a way that was not appropriate for a 5-year-old girl. And she was scared because he caught her, you know, and he told her she wasn't in trouble, but you know, it wasn't right. And who was it that showed her how to do this? So she named a couple of teenage cousin girls and an aunt and an uncle, this kind of stuff. And so John tried to talk to Marie about it, but Marie was tired, didn't want to talk about it. You know, she wanted to talk the next day. So the next day came, he went to work, and then I think it was that day that they came home. John came home, and about 7:30 in the evening, and Marie had been home for about a half hour. And she said that Jessie had called, and that she had left her dog in their backyard because she had taken Taylor and her 10-year-old cousin, Keisha, to Grants Pass to see great-grandpa in the hospital down there. So they were coming back to get the dog. And so they showed up, and John was in his, down the hall in a small mobile home. He was in his computer room, and so when Keisha came in to the hallway, he called her to the door and said, I need to talk to you about something. And he asked her about this, what you would say incestuous molestation in the family. And Keisha told him, yes, that it was okay though, because they were all girls, it was okay. And he said, no, it's not okay, and it's going to stop. And so she said, okay. Well, she went, and her aunt was getting him in the car, you know, Taylor's mother, Jessie. About 15, 20 minutes later, the phone rang, and it was Jessie calling Marie, his wife, and just hysterical, totally hysterical. And so Marie says, we gotta go, because there's something wrong. She thought maybe one of her sons had been killed in a car wreck or something. That's how bad it was. Well, they got there, and Marie started to go up to the house, and John was right behind her, and Jesse then just came at John saying, "You did it, you know you did it, and you know what you did to Taylor," and started accusing him of inappropriate molestation of Taylor. Well, he got very angry, and Marie told him to go home and that she would find out what was going on and she'd come home. Well, he went home, and it wasn't long till his son Jimmy showed up, because Jesse had then called Jimmy at work. And Jimmy believed her, so he came to his dad to get his dad's hard drive off of his computer, because Jesse was saying, "I know he's got pictures of the girls, I know he's got pornography on the computer, he's going to destroy it." So Jimmy came to get his dad's computer hard drive. And in the process, he was threatening to kill John, and he did knock him around, and things got a little rough. Well, John couldn't fight back because he'd been in a couple of bad accidents and had some pretty serious bone breakage and concussions, that kind of stuff. So he knew he couldn't fight Jimmy. So Jimmy did take his hard drive, and then John got scared and took off in the car because he was afraid Jimmy would come back and try to assault him and maybe even kill him and cause his own life to be destroyed. And so he was a long-haul truck driver, so he didn't think much of driving. He just drove, just to stay away from the house. And his wife was calling on the cell phone, and his sons was calling, and he was on the road, I don't know where all he went, for a couple of days, and he didn't get any sleep, and he was pretty well messed up psychologically and physically, medically. And so he finally ended up back in the Rogue Valley down there at Medford, and he called Kelly to meet him at the park. And so Kelly met him, it's his oldest son. And while they were talking, he asked Kelly, "Would you get the hard drive?" Because Jimmy had taken it to Jesse's and left it there at his girlfriend's house. And he said, "Would you go destroy the hard drive?" And Kelly said, "No, I will not destroy evidence in a criminal case, And John said, "Oh, that's okay. It's been gone for a long time anyhow." Well, nobody asked him. Kelly didn't ask him. So when Kelly testified to this in court, it sounded really bad. And so when I was visiting John over there one time, I asked him, "What was this about you asking Kelly to destroy the hard drive?" He said, "Marie and I had gotten a camera that was compatible with the computer, and he said, we were trying it out, and he said, I took some rather risque pictures of Marie, the boys' mother. And he said, I was thinking, if the police get a hold of that and they get those pictures, it's going to be embarrassing for Marie." So that's why he wanted it destroyed, so Marie wouldn't be embarrassed by probably nude pictures of her. And then when he said, "Oh, that's okay, they've been gone for a long time anyhow," he said it came to him that the hard drive that they had put those pictures on of Marie had actually blown and actually had a different hard drive. So that's why he said, "Oh, they've been gone for a long time anyhow." Nobody ever asked him why he asked, but yet they did get Kelly to testify that he'd asked him to destroy evidence. So there was just things like that that just didn't look good in his trial. Well, he was in jail for about 2 years before it actually went to trial, because he hired Workman, Larry B. Workman, Oregon State Bar 86319. He gave him, I think, about $40,000 retainer. And he thought it was better to give his money that he had to the attorney to work for him rather than put it up for bail, because he had quite a large bail on him. And so he stayed in jail without bail. And his wife Marie actually sold her home, got a divorce, moved in with Kelly and Christy before he was ever convicted. And she would not put up bail for him, even out of the sale of their home. And so he was in jail all that time. He wrote numerous letters to this attorney telling him that the family, the Smith family, he had found was incestuous, that they should look into the fact that this child, he wasn't the molester, the family was that way. And also Marie had told him that Jessie had told her herself that she'd had a problem with an uncle, that they had, you know, been a sexually active family. And nobody asked Marie about that on the witness stand or anything. And so he ended up being convicted on not only on child molesting and all that, but he was also convicted on child porn, because they found child porn in his hard drive that had been accessed and deleted into his hard drive. But the DA actually testified that for him to access that, he had to take the hard drive apart. He had special equipment that he could, you know, the subterranean, what I call, I don't know too much about computers, but I call it the subterranean part of the hard drive. He was able to pull them up, and that they had actually been pulled up and reburied 2 or 3 times, these porn pictures of children. Well, the attorney did not hire an investigator to question, to research his case in 2 years. He didn't hire a computer tech when he knew that they were bringing computer charges against John. His attorney did not spend any money that I could see on his defense. And so yeah, he was convicted. But I am totally illiterate, but yet in my researching of what should have been done with that computer hard drive, I mean, it can be accessed remotely. It can be accessed through games. John played a lot of, he belonged to a squadron of fighter pilots on the web, you know, in the internet. And they could actually talk to each other, and they did dogfights and everything, and they bought games back and forth from each other. It was testified that it's possible for this kind of stuff to be buried in one of those games without you even knowing it when you're buying from a private person. Also, after he was in prison, a guy in prison helped him, and he researched it, and he could see that the days that his computer accessed child porn, John was at work on 2 of those days. Another time, he was bowling with his son Kelly on a Thursday night. They belonged to a bowling league, and his computer was accessed to child porn on a Thursday night while he was bowling. I have made phone calls. I've called every bowling alley. I found out, yes, he was a paid-up member of a bowling league in 2004, and that they did bowl on Thursday nights. So this is the total lack of his attorney, Workman, even trying to defend him. And then when it came time, almost time for him to go to trial, Workman comes to him and says, I'm going to have to withdraw from your case because something to do conflict of interest. Workman's secretary had embezzled John's money out of the client account, and so this guy says there's no money to defend you with. The secretary stole it all. And she also started two store accounts with credit cards in his name. She bought a car charged to his name. All in all, she racked up about $42,000 or more against John while he was sitting in jail. And then his attorney quits on him. Well, the secretary did get convicted. I guess she spent 18 months in prison. But the second attorney he got, he couldn't get an attorney because he didn't have any money. And so this first attorney then recommended a second attorney. He had to accept him because he couldn't do it without an attorney. The second attorney, the same thing. He didn't do a thing, not a thing, to investigate computer tech, nothing. They just let this man go to trial, and he was 20-some years he ended up with. So he has since, in 6 years, I don't know how many cases he's filed as far as appeals and stuff himself. He's getting to be quite the attorney. He recently filed a post-conviction relief, and I've been involved in that. And this here was my affidavit that I put together in his case. I presented this to the court in Malheur County over in Vail, Oregon, and they postponed it because I hadn't sent a copy to the AG's office. So I did that, and then we were back in court a second time. The second time I went over to Ontario, or to Vail, I went in for court that morning, and the gal says, "Oh, we had that 2 days ago. We had an opening in the court, so we just stuck Mr. Ross in that opening." And here they had my affidavit. They knew I was coming. Well, he then filed another appeal, got it back into court again, August the 13th, I believe it was, and of 2011. So I went over there 2 days ahead of time with my motorhome, because I was going to make sure that they didn't do that to me again. Well, I went in two mornings making sure that they had done this, and I was able to get in. Well, it's all done by camera. I went in and I was on the bench, I was on the witness stand, and the only other woman in the room was the gal who was operating the computer system. The judge was on one television screen, John was on another television screen, and the Attorney General, Ms. Nordyke, was on another television screen. So they were discussing my affidavit. Mrs. Nordyke says we need to dismiss Ms. Michael and her affidavit for lack of form. You know how they do. So I knew that was pre-planned ahead of time. Mrs. Nordyke and Ms. Bergman had that planned, and you know. So I got down off the witness stand, but I didn't leave the room. I went over in the back and I sat down, and I was there unbeknownst to even John. He didn't even know I was there. But I sat there and listened to the whole thing. Well, he had presented his time cards. He had finally gotten his time cards himself, which showed that when he was convicted of molesting that child, he wasn't home. He was at work. He had worked 14 hours a day. And, well, they had dismissed his time cards because although the time cards was printed out on Top Rock Trucking computer, each one of those time cards he sent the whole year of 2004. They said they weren't signed, so how could they prove it was from Top Rock? Because the boss hadn't signed each one of those timesheets. So he had then got in touch with his boss, and his boss sent a cover letter, which I have here. A cover letter stating that the timesheets he had sent to the courts, or to John, was when John Ross was working for him in 2004. Well, Mrs. Nordyke said, we're going to have to dismiss this because his signature is illegible. Well, I didn't have a copy of this at the time. So I just assumed, okay, like judges scribble. It was illegible. Well, right here I can show you. Curtis Vale Wusseldorf. It's not illegible. So I didn't know that. I didn't have this at the time. So I thought, okay, we need one that's legible, or it needs to be typed below, because by law, if a signature can't be read, it needs to be typed or printed. So I went home that day and I contacted Vale Wusseldorf, and I told him that we need another cover letter because they said your signature was illegible. And so he said, okay, you send me what I need to sign and I'll sign it and mail it to John. I said, no, we have to do this before the 19th. Because when I was in court, the judge had said, Mr. Ross, I will make my decision in 1 week, which a week from, it's either the 12th or the 13th, would have been the 19th of August 2011. So I knew I had to get this done and back to the judge before the 19th. So I typed them up and I sent the next morning, which was, I got in the morning of the 15th, I sent 3 faxes to Mr. Wusseldorf. I said, sign one and fax it to the court, which I gave him the fax number. Sign the other one, send it to Ms. Nordyke at the Attorney General's office. I gave him that fax number. And I said, send the third one signed to John for his records. And so later that day, which was the 15th, Vale Wusseldorf called me back and said, I've signed all 3 of them, I've faxed them, and I sent all 3 faxes, copies of all 3 of them to John, so that he can show that it was faxed to the court and to the Attorney General's office. So that was on the 15th. We had it in plenty of time for the judge to accept his time cards onto the record. Well, a week or so went by and John sent me Judge Bergman's rejection. It did not mention the fact that she had received a fax the morning of the 15th. It was a 2-page rejection of his post-conviction relief. And if you look at the front page, it is totally somebody else's rejection letter, dated in something in 2010. And it was marked out and written August the 15th, which was the day as we sent the faxes to her, August the 15th, 2011. Well, at the bottom of the page, when you've got a document coming out, it'll say 1 of 2 or 1 of 3 or something like that. The front page said 1 of 3 down at the bottom. Well, the second page, which was the signature page on the back, signing the rejection, said 2 of 2. So she had taken 2 different documents, slapped them together, made 2 pages out of 2 different documents that are down at the bottom. I mean, anybody can look down there and see these are 2 different documents altogether that are slapped together for his rejection of his post-conviction relief. So that's the way they do it. When she didn't mention that she'd received a fax on the 15th, she just said, case denied. So how does a person get justice when you're up against those kinds of people? So that's the kind of stuff that I've been battling with for 10, 20 years now. And I don't think I'll be quitting soon. Thank you.